Ok, sean todos y todas bienvenidas a su evento Unidos por la Naturaleza, vigilando de cerca los bosques en América.
Welcome everyone to Webinar United for Nature, keeping a close eye on the forest in Latin America. Welcome to the audience. We have simultaneous interpretation in English and Spanish.
Al público que nos acompaña les informamos que pueden presentarse o hacer
Also, you can actually present or actually make comments in the chat. We also invite you to actually formulate questions during the event. However, this, we appreciate if you can actually go to the Q&A section of Zoom, and these will be answered via the same way. This would take 1 hour and 50 minutes. Thank you. So starting, we have we need to actually manage a resource. We know exactly what do we have in terms of quantities, compositions, and conditions, of course. Etc. Now at the forest level, the forest actually is a tool that actually allows us to actually know exactly what we have in our forest. And for this, is this process of quantification and evaluation has a very important value when we talk about forest management. Now, the forest inventories are actually carried out by a series of techniques and processes that actually allow us to actually collect data and transform these into information. This information must be validated and transparent so we can actually make the certain and correct decisions. And for this, we can add this process of collection of data can be defined and documented. During the following minutes, we have the opportunity of actually knowing an exemplary experience developed in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean, an experience that actually shows us the effort by a region in sharing knowledge on how to actually generate data, their methodologies, and their processes of national forest inventories. During the following minutes, we'll also have the opportunity of actually listening to forest authorities of countries in the region in the forum on the importance of national forest inventories. We expect that this event is for your benefit. We have the opening remarks of Mrs. Mette Wilkie, Forest Director of the Forest Division of FAO. She has over 30 years experience in the forest and environmental field. She has um, an enormous background in forest monitoring and assessment. During her work with the FAO, she actually led 2 global assessments of forest resources. She's always been fostering the process of collection and management of data, forest data from different forms of methods. It's a pleasure to actually have you with us today, and you have the floor. Apparently, we have a technical issue here with her connection, so we can go ahead to the next point while Mrs. Mette actually connects. So we'll pass the floor over to Carla Ramírez. She's an expert in national forest inventories from the forest division from FAO, who will present a book on national forest inventories for Latin America and the Caribbean for the harmonization of forest information. Carla, she's from Guatemala with over 20 years experience on forest inventories. She coordinated the edition of this book that's presented today, as well as she's sponsored the National Forest Inventories for Latin America and the Caribbean. Carla, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll pass the floor over to you, Carla. Thank you so much, David, for your presentation. Greetings to all participants of this event. For me, it's a privilege and an honor to actually present to you this book on national forest inventories from Latin America and the Caribbean towards the harmonization of forest information. Now, this presentation is I carry this out on behalf of the publisher and the 85 stakeholders of this book. Thank you so much, each and one of you, for your trust and dedication and for your tremendous effort in actually achieving this goal. It's been quite satisfactory to actually find in virtual meetings, and we hope that soon enough we can see face to face to continue to consolidate this network. The network of experts and collaborators of national forest inventories from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Para continuar,
in order to continue, we'll follow the example of wisdom of the native people that protect the forests of the world. So I invite you in following their beliefs that together we should thank Mother Nature, Kwanan Kwachuleo, as we say in Quiche, the Mayan language in Guatemala, O Pachamama, as we say in Quechua language in the countries of South America. A true special thanks to the forest of the world for protection, for their food, for maintaining our water sources, for the raw materials, for purifying our air, for your simple beauty that fills our spirits. And so be it. The National Forest Inventories is a scientific process that allows to improve our knowledge on forest, which consists of systematic measurements of the terrain, which requires a better coordination and commitment by many different stakeholders. So we actually want to honor, tribute, and to appreciate and thank to all the men and women who have dedicated their knowledge, their passion, and their enthusiasm to actually design and to plan, to organize, to train, to measure, to supervise, and to assist with their local knowledge during the implementation of the National Forest Inventories in the countries of Latin America, the Caribbean, and from the world. I also want to honor the analysts that actually use the data from the NFIs to convert this into knowledge compiled in statistics and maps of quality validated in the field. The countries of Latin America and the Caribbean from the last two decades have transformed the national forest inventories for the production of wood to national forest inventories of multi-purpose and with ongoing measurements. This transformation has implied to actually motivate the decision makers to improve the ownership and the commitment of their national governments, to motivate the mobilization of national financial resources and of international cooperation, to achieve the organization between national, public, and subnational entities with the academia, with organizations from civil society, from the different businesses, native communities, and the owners of the forests. Also, it implies to design and plan the collection of data from the field and teledetection at the lowest cost to maintain the human resources duly and ongoing trained and to collect and to demonstrate the quality of the data in a very transparent way. Since 2012, there's been an initiative of exchange of knowledge among the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean on the national forest inventories. But as of June 2016, during the fourth symposium on the national forest inventories in Brazil, in Goiânia, we had the fortune of actually meeting with Duarte de Freitas, the current professor from the Federal University of the Amazons, and ex-director, a former director of the National Forest Inventories of Brazil, Isiara Alberdi from the National Research and Technological Agrarian and Food Institute. And it was Roberto who actually proposed the idea of actually joining efforts to actually advance toward the creation of a network of experts of national forest inventories. And that idea, we had Mario Chacon from CATIE, who actually joined in, who also provided his support in organizing the following two meetings in Manaus and Turrialba, Costa Rica. Further on, we had Carlos Bamontes from Info Chile, who actually coordinated the first meeting in Valdivia, Chile in 2012. Now, our main goal was converted into improve the knowledge, to harmonize information, and visualize the importance of the national forest inventories for the decision making on forests at the national, regional, and global level. And today we are extremely proud to celebrate with all of you the birthday of this initiative because it's precisely 2 years ago on December 2nd, 2019, we had the first meeting with the National Forest Inventories coordinators from the Latin countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the initiative started growing, and our first goal was to actually have this book, which we are actually making available to all of you today. This book contains in the first part information on the history and the relevance of the national forest inventories from the region, an analysis of the similarity and differences of the design of the challenges of these inventories, a brief summary of the future outlooks to improve the inventories, and to continue with this. And from this, we have an analysis of the challenges and opportunities from this. The first part actually concludes with an invitation towards open data for the transparency of the forest information. The second part, you can actually find the studies, case studies of the 21 countries that participated in this, where it actually showcases the histories of the forest inventories from each country, the terms and definitions from the main variables, the methodologies and designs, of course, the implementation and quality control, the results from the last inventory from each country, and other relevant variables, and their own future outlooks. Now, with this beautiful work, each of the countries actually recognize the importance of actually knowing the forest to improve its management and its conservation for the benefit of the rural and urban communities. Furthermore, the region of Latin America and the Caribbean actually demonstrates once again its commitment, serious commitment of actually educating the people on forest information to increase the transparency and credibility of information, to continue with the support in the consolidation of the network of experts and collaborators from the National Forest Inventories. It is a very important investment to obtain ongoing data and equality on forests. This work has received the support of many people, which we truly and deeply thank, and especially we thank the European Network on Forest Inventory and the Working Group on Forest Inventory and Forest Monitoring from the North American Forest Commission. Furthermore, we thank the support of every single person who's been present during the coordination, publishing, layout, translation, and dissemination. The book in Spanish is already available. Here in the link in the presentation, you can find this. And following, we'll place the link in the chat. The English version will be available in January next year, and we will notify every single participant on its availability. Now, to conclude with my remarks, I leave you with a very short video with more information on this publication. Thank you so much, everyone, for your attention, and we wish you, and we hope that you actually enjoy this video. Thank you, and your reading. Thank you.
El libro de inventarios forestales nacionales de América Latina y el Caribe es el primer paso para armonizar y mejorar el fundamento científico de la información forestal de la región. Los bosques proporcionan recursos clave para millones de personas, tales como alimentos, productos maderables, plantas medicinales, resinas, entre otros. También proporcionan servicios como la mitigación de gases de efecto invernadero, refugio para la biodiversidad y la conservación de suelos y agua. América Latina y el Caribe contiene una cuarta parte de los bosques del mundo, brindando importantes servicios ambientales a nivel global. Desafortunadamente, los bosques de la región y su biodiversidad continúan amenazados, debido a las acciones para convertir los bosques en tierras agrícolas y a los niveles insostenibles de explotación, en gran parte ilegal. Los inventarios forestales nacionales son procesos de medición, recolección y análisis de datos para informar sobre el progreso de las acciones que evitan la deforestación y apoyan el manejo sostenible y conservación de los bosques. Proveen datos confiables para el seguimiento de las políticas nacionales y el reporte de los compromisos internacionales sobre los bosques, como el cambio climático y la biodiversidad. América Latina y el Caribe posee una gran diversidad de ecosistemas forestales, y este conocimiento se está ampliando con apoyo de los inventarios forestales nacionales. Por ejemplo, Brasil cuenta con cerca de 30 nuevas especies en proceso de identificación que fueron recolectadas en el inventario. Chile también ha ampliado su información sobre biodiversidad y al momento se han identificado 87 nuevas especies de artrópodos. Los inventarios forestales nacionales también constituyen un pilar fundamental para la estimación de emisiones que se reporta en los inventarios nacionales de gases de efecto invernadero y en los niveles de referencia del mecanismo de reducción de emisiones por la deforestación y degradación de los bosques. La transparencia es esencial para demostrar acciones sobre las decisiones regionales para detener las amenazas sobre los bosques. La armonización de los datos que se generan en los inventarios forestales nacionales ayudan a la transparencia. Esta nueva publicación es el primer paso hacia la armonización de los datos forestales de la región, porque compara las similitudes, las diferencias, los desafíos y las oportunidades de los inventarios forestales nacionales. El desarrollo de este libro ha permitido la construcción de la red de expertos de inventarios forestales nacionales de América Latina y el Caribe. Este libro es una contribución para tomadores de decisión, donantes, inversionistas y organizaciones que trabajan por la conservación y restauración de los bosques para cumplir con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, las metas del Acuerdo de París y las metas de conservación de la biodiversidad. Participan 21 países apoyados por numerosos socios estratégicos. Como siguiente paso, se analizarán las definiciones de referencia de las variables más importantes como un proceso clave para mejorar la comprensión de lo que se está midiendo y reportando. Esto requiere un gran esfuerzo y sincronización de todas las partes, por lo que es crucial el apoyo y participación activa de los tomadores de decisión y donantes.
Gracias, Carla.
Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you so much, Carla. The video was quite beautiful. Once again, I remind everyone that the book is accessible on our webpage, free of cost. My colleagues right now, they're actually putting the link in the chat. They've informed me that our director, Mette Wilkie, is with us. I already introduced you to everyone, so you have the floor. Okay, so the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, David, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I see we have 200 people listening in today. This is fantastic, and I'm really pleased to be here with you on this webinar for looking at how we can do better in terms of creating, disseminating information on forests. I'd like on behalf of FAO to extend my most sincere thanks to our partners at the National Institute for Agriculture and Forest Research of the Spanish National Research Council, the Federal University of Amazonas from Brazil, the Forestry Institute of Chile, and the European National Forest Inventory Network for helping us make this event possible. Also, a very special thank you to our speakers, the forestry directors from Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, and Mexico, and the National Forest Inventory Coordinator from Honduras for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. As you all know, the Latin America and Caribbean region is home to a quarter of the world's forests, and that they provide tremendous and vital environmental services at the regional and global level, in addition to the economic products and services that they provide also at the national level. The sustainable management of these forests help countries achieve their national plans, but also international development and climate goals and targets, such as those that we have in the Sustainable Development Agenda and in the Paris Agreement. And high quality, transparent, and accessible forest data enables the development of policies that are positive to forest, that practices that are needed for the economic recovery and development, for biodiversity conservation, for climate change, mitigation, and adaptation. With more than 60 years of experience in forest monitoring, FAO has been and continues to be providing countries and our member states with the technical advice to develop and implement national forest inventories. These are sort of the systematic collection of data on the size and location, composition, diversity, health, use, and other characteristics of the forest resources. And that information that comes from these inventories informs decisions and policy agendas at subnational, national, regional, and even global levels. And as you've heard today, we're very pleased to launch a new publication that was prepared together with partners in the region called National Forest Inventories of Latin America and the Caribbean towards the harmonization of forest information. And as you heard, to develop this publication, 21 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean shared their experiences on designing, implementing national forest inventories. Working closely together, they jointly compared the history of their NFIs, the similarities and the differences of their methods of data collection, of definitions and analysis of variables, and the opportunities and challenges that they face. We hope that this publication will help increase the capacity to collect, analyze, and report forest-related data, and to disseminate this information much more broadly, so that we enhance the use of the data, the information, and the knowledge from NFIs in political decision-making processes. The production of this publication has also increased the South-South cooperation in Latin America and the Caribbean, enhancing exchanges of technical and scientific information and improving the consistency of forest-related reporting to international agreements. It also formed part of the process to develop a network of national forest inventory experts and specialists and collaborators in the region. And today we will discuss the importance of national forest inventories to develop robust and transparent forest data for effective and evidence-driven policy and decision-making. But with this diverse group of forestry practitioners and experts, we will also explore the key messages of this new publication and hear some country examples. We hope that this webinar will help increase knowledge sharing on national forest inventory processes and that it will continue to strengthen the NFI network. And let me take this opportunity to encourage all our partners and everybody who's listening in today to help us continue to build this network through collaboration and through investment in national forest inventories. We here at FAO certainly look forward to jointly build on the perspectives and the lessons learned that we will hear about here today in this webinar. And I certainly wish you all very productive and enriching discussions. And thanks very much for having me, despite I'm joining a little bit late.
Gracias, Mette. No hay problema.
Thank you so much. No problem whatsoever. Thank you so much for very kind words and that really summarizes all this work that we actually taken. Thank you so much. Well, let's continue with the program. Right now, we're in the section of the panel of experts in which we'll debate about the importance of the Latin American forest inventories in Latin America and Caribbean. So Isiar Alberti will moderate this part. Isiar, she's a member of the European National Forest, and she's been a huge promoter in the process of harmonization of information. And she's also co-editor and co-author of the book that we're actually presenting today. Now, before I pass the floor to Isiar, I remind everyone that you can actually ask your questions in the Q&A section here in Zoom. Isiar, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. For me, it's a tremendous satisfaction to actually welcome all this group of experts that are with us today. An event that it's a milestone for the forest information in Latin America and the Caribbean, unifying all the efforts, numerous efforts of Latin America and from the region to discuss the advances and the challenges that with the information on harmonized information from Latin America and the Caribbean. We have with us Silviana Chule. She's actually the director of forest, then the subsecretary of natural patrimony of the environment ministry from Ecuador, where she actually works in management and forest governance related with sustainable management and conservation and forest management and forest monitoring and improvement as well. We also have with us Mr. Luis Menezes Murillo. with a broad experience in public service, in social development role, and the environment. Now, he currently the general director of the Forest Division with Mexico, where he actually has a mandate of actually have the community forest management and the protection and the restoration of forests in Mexico. We also have Mr. Martin Monaco, National Director of Forests from the Ministry of the Environment and Sustainable Development from the Republic of Argentina. He's a forest engineer specialized in pastoral inventory pastoral systems, and he's been a director since 2013. Then different areas of governance, also for national and provincial as well. And he participates in different initiatives that are linked to the implementation of a national law forest. Mr. Castellanos is also with us, and he's Fernando Raga Castellanos. He's also from the Director of Marine Force from Chile. It's an aspirant to the Ministry of Agriculture from Chile. He's an industry engineer from the University of Chile. Has a long history and executive positions related to from the forest section. And lastly, and Mr. Bettina Salgado Hernandez with 20 years of experience since 28. He's a coordinator from the Forest National Inventory from the Forest Institute of Honduras. For and this will take about 50 minutes. I will have concrete questions from the panel members, in which I actually ask you to respond in a very concise way. And we have about 4 minutes each. If you take more, please, I apologize, and I'll ask you to actually make your closing remarks. So first off, I actually want to know the opinion from Mr. Raga and Mr. Monaco on the importance after the perspective, the credibility of the information for the decision making. Mr. Raga, if you can actually start.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Bueno, cada vez hay más conciencia.
We have more and more awareness of how important the forests are for society as biodiversity reservoirs and mitigators of climate change and suppliers of ecosystem services and wood in sources like biofuels. This action of forests with their need for conservation, restoration, and sustainable use is demanding countries to fine-tune their instruments of public policy in order to be able to cover these needs in an efficient and cost-efficient way from a social and economic point of view. In order to attain that, it is vital to have as accurate as possible diagnosis of the status of a forest and also have the capacity to monitor change either as a result of public policies or the lack thereof. This way, it is highly relevant for each country to have data that is going to generate information regarding the structure of age, productive potential, and health condition of individuals that are part of this forest in order to be able to plan and prepare public policies that are sustainable and will contribute to the well-being of the society as a whole. But you know that the forests are also at the center of the concern of the public because political decisions are moved for good or bad by this pressure that is triggered by this concern, either at general level or at territorial level. If the information delivered about forests is deficient or not reliable, it will result in a situation of lack of trust that might make react the public by promoting unfounded measurements or wrong ones with counterproductive results. So in order to have good public policies and offer the public an accurate vision and a reliable one about the reality of the status and evolution of forests, the quality and credibility of information is fundamental. The tool to provide this data and information corresponds to the National Forest Inventory, a tool that through the use of statistics provides a solid and robust means to obtain data, generating information with tangible estimations which is certainly resulting in credibility and support to decisions related to forest resources. Having good national forest inventories requires technological and human capacities, and also there is a demand for resources that must be provided by the government, and this is why it's so important to raise awareness among political leaders of this need to have these tools in order to ensure the quality and credibility of information on forests in order to have the resources necessary. Thank you. Mr. Monaco, please go ahead. Hello, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers. I think that all of this is so important, and I think that to avoid repeating something that has been already said, for us, forest information for decision-making purposes is the core on which these best decisions on the political area regarding these resources, in this case, forest resources, will be made based on information. So having scientific information that is detailed and accurate about natural resources, as Fernando just said, is going to allow to make accurate decisions in relation to native forests in general. Argentina is not an exemption to all these problems that we have with forests in Latin America and the Caribbean linked to deforestation, illegal aspects, and in order to be able to design policies that would allow us to advance with this forest development and rural development for all of us, free of deforestation, it is necessary to have updated information about the potential that these native forests have in general, in order to be able to create a value for these common goods that have, of course, an implication at local level, but also at regional and global level, within a context in which climate change is more and more evident, and also the problems are more frequent and more intense. So it is necessary to consider the role of forests as providers of all the things we need, but we must also consider their potential regarding the greenhouse effect gases, and to be able to dynamize the carbon capture, because this is a problem that we all have to face. So it's important not only to have accurate information regarding what we have, but also about what we could have, thinking about an integrated development that would allow us to advance with the sustainable development that is going to be inclusive and formal, with our native forests in mind, and once and for all be able to stop deforestation that so much problems at environmental and social level has created. Thank you. Thank you. In addition to the need for reliable and quality information, as you mentioned, and of course, updated, which is a challenge, as Mr. Donato said, I would like to ask Mrs. Chulde and Mr. Meneses your point of view on the importance of having comparable information for continuous monitoring of forests in the region. Please, Mrs. Chulde, go ahead. Your microphone is muted. Maybe we can start with Mr. Meneses then. Or maybe, can you hear me now? Yes. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be able to share this virtual space with you. And in relation to your question, I wanted to say that since 2008, Ecuador has developed several initiatives to implement and strengthen a national monitoring system for forests with the purpose of improving the mechanisms for information gathering related to their forest heritage, which is going to allow to improve governance of forest resources and also generate technical rules for evaluation sustainable management and conservation of the national forest heritage. The National System for Forest Monitoring in Ecuador constitutes an harmonized group of stakeholders, components, methodologies, and processes through which we generate, gather, analyze, and report spatial, biophysical, social, and economic information related to forests, other natural ecosystems, and their biodiversity. The importance of forests exceeds economic and social limits for production of wood, paper, fuel, and other products, since the forests also provide key services like the conservation of biodiversity, regulation of water, and mitigation of climate change, and maintenance of livelihoods of the populations that depend on them. Having comparable information throughout time regarding the status of forests is not only important for decision-making inside the country, but also important to evaluate common problems in the region, like the causes for deforestation and degradation, or the loss of biodiversity in these forests. And it will allow us to look for common alternatives among the countries to mitigate their impact and improve the sustainable management. This comparability makes necessary the harmonization of data that different countries generate and that historically have been created to tend to the needs based on their national capacities. Having harmonized information regarding the status of forests in the region is going to allow us to have a starting point in order to evaluate their status in the region, and also to have more transparent and comparable reports, generating better opportunities for investment for their conservation, restoration, and management, and increasing the opportunities to look for financing between the different mechanisms at global level, like those related to the mitigation of emissions in the context of REDD+ and their payments for results. The harmonization of data on forestal monitoring at regional level will also allow countries to establish better strategies at national level for this data to be obtained at a cost that will not exceed their benefits. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Mr. Meneses? Yes, thank you. First, I would like to recognize the experts in the region for their work and dedication that has allowed the publication of this book, the National Forest Commission in Mexico, that aims their work at all the indications of our president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and everything that we have as part of this National Development Plan, and the Secretary Maria Luisa Albores. As part of this purpose, the national law for sustainable development in our country considers the National Forest Monitoring System as an instrument of forest policy, which is led by the Secretary of the Environment and Natural Resources. Forest monitoring is a basic tool to get to know the status of forests and how they can evolve through time. And it is basic to support the decision makers to try and promote sustainable forest management to promote social and economic development of the communities. In Mexico, we have implemented the National Forest Inventory since 2004. And the Mexican experience in this area emphasizes the importance of having harmonized data, and which can be compared through time. The evolution of these resources worldwide is the perfect example of the importance of harmonization when it comes to these indicators among the countries. And publishing this book is going to offer an opportunity to have a better knowledge and a common base of forest indicators that are consistent at regional level to allow to measure the impact of these efforts of all these policies and programs that are aimed at decreasing deforestation and degradation in the region. And in like manner, we would like to have harmonized information based on national forest inventories, and this is going to help regulate the advance and comply with international commitments. Thank you. Thank you. And I would like now to get to know Mrs. Salgado's opinion. She is the co-author of the book. So what do you think is or should be the role of national forest inventories in order to improve forest information? Hello and good morning. Thank you for the invitation. From my standpoint, national forest inventories are multi-purpose because through them you can gather information to evaluate the advance in the social economic aspect, biodiversity, use and service of this forest. We have data on the contents of stored carbon on these 5 deposits like air, underground, and many other things. And we would like to measure how we can restore the forest. For example, the National Forest Inventory in Honduras is on its 3rd cycle, and we have a criteria and indicators in order to evaluate these policies. And it consists of 7 criteria, 26 indicators, 63 variables, along with their verification purposes. When we say that they should be multi-source, without field information, these data are not going to be efficient, so they should be combined with data from remote sensors in order to have high quality results. When we say that they should also be multi-resource, this inventory should generate continuous data for a timely use of information, and we must promote management of national and international resources on a continuous manner. Countries in the Central American region are betting on the institutionalization of these inventories in order to ensure government funds and also cooperation funds. For example, in Honduras, we have coordinated with projects that require information, but we are not working on an isolated manner, but towards a common goal. For example, we are working with 2 big projects that for sustainable forest management financed by IDB. They needed to be able to evaluate an impact indicator for the reduction of greenhouse effect gases that account for 25% of the national territory in this area. So we coordinated with them, and they used the methodology and protocols of the national inventories in order to create this field for the installation of 588 samples. And of course, we also have Mi Pesca de Goal, another project financed by IDV. They needed to get to know the carbon contents on the mangrove forest because it's a fragile system that has not been studied thoroughly. So we coordinated with them because they were interested in the Caribbean area. But after the negotiations, we were able to have them do a research of all the mangrove forest in the Caribbean and the Pacific as well. So we installed 56 samples, and we were able to reduce the error to 60% on our mangroves. And in the upcoming weeks, we will be ready to publish the current status of the forest mangrove, which would have not been possible without the support of the systems in the United States and these programs. I mentioned that this inventory should be multi-resource. This is why I want to emphasize the role of these inventories to better interpret the information of remote sensors, because these inventories are gathered out there on the field, so this is real data. And thus, they should be used as points of control or validation of the coverage maps in our country. We are not working this way on many countries. So when it comes to visual interpretation, this can be used as a tool. And we want to improve the processes for the classification. We are working independently, so we are looking to integrate all these projects. The credibility of these inventories is designed with a statistic in the solid base at national level. So data analysis had less assumptions that if we were an analyst using different sources of information. And that they covered the whole population of interest and not only at national level. So we have this transparency. in order to have quality control, because we all have these quality problems so that they can be reliable. And this is why they are so important, because they include the pre and post processes when it comes to information gathering, all the way from the design, data gathering, training. So in our country, every year we train our technical personnel at government level, and we have controls for data cleaning. We are aware of everything. So when we find an alert, we call our colleagues during the generation of these reports of forest resources, including the uncertainty related to the information. Thank you. And the truth is that we all have this passion about inventories. We have been working on it for 12 years, so it's a pleasure for me to talk about this. Thank you. And congratulations for this publication that you were mentioning. And considering this multi-purpose aspect of national forest inventories that you mentioned, I wanted to know Mr. Raga's point of view about the role of these inventories as an information tool and forest restoration, conservation of biodiversity, and climate change. Thank you for the question. National forest inventories have evolved since their first applications back then in the 20s and the last century towards multi-resource inventories using auxiliary sources for the implementation. So we're not only answering questions regarding wood, but also aspects of forest ecosystems as a whole. So this is data gathering related to species that depend on the forest, the diversity, social and economic aspects, and topics related to threats to this development, like the case of climate change. Continuous follow-up of this status and condition allows the technical institutions to identify trends and have action, and in consequence, restore the ecosystems that will be based on the identification of reference status that are informed by the data of the National Forest Inventory to the different productive aspects of biodiversity and effects of climate change. In our country, the National Monitoring System for Native Forests is the initiative that cooperates with other two services of the Ministry of Agriculture that address not only the description and monitoring of said ecosystems, but also biodiversity aspects that incorporate participative monitoring and elements of this relation with the people and the ecosystems in the territory. CIMEF started as a project financed by the World Environmental Fund coordinated by FAO. Its mechanisms, technical solutions, and process were integrated by the government of Chile that nowadays finances them and coordinates them in a permanent manner through the Ministry of Agriculture as a national program. CIMEF has a digital platform that integrates all relevant information regarding native ecosystems. It also integrates the territories through regional committees and promotes the use of forest information on planning and decision-making tools at regional level. The institutions that are part of CIMEF are all those involved in the generation of information regarding forest ecosystems. Their coordination at the ministry level ensures that we have a unique source of information trying to prevent the diversity of versions that might attempt against its credibility. On the other hand, the commitments of our country when it comes to the mitigation of climate change based on forest and the development of international incentives and credit markets for CO2 generate a high level of demand in quality information and require compliance with world-class standards to support the goals or the levels of capture of CO2 that will justify financial transactions that are very important. This level of information quality is possible nowadays thanks to our inventory and monitoring system. So as you can see, our inventory system is key for forest restoration, conservation of biodiversity, and reports on climate change. Thank you. Thank you. And precisely considering the relevance of national forest inventories for different aspects of forest policies, like you mentioned, I would like to know the opinion of Mr. Monaco and Mr. Meneses on the implications for your respective countries of this book of national forest inventories in the region and their contributions. Please, Mr. Monaco. I think that Argentina has been working for quite some time on the improvement of the quality of information and trying to have better inventories because Argentina has the particularity of having many regions. We have 7 forest ecoregions, and within each region we have different forest types, and this adds to the complexity for data gathering, and thus we have a need to evolve through the knowledge that we acquire both from the scientific and academic sectors, but also experience-based, because the experience that Argentina has both at province level with the inventories at regional level as well, and the experience that we have acquired on our national inventory have made possible for the quality of information, data gathering, and variables. So we have been improving the design for the monitoring units, and this has been a learning process that we have had internally, but we now have this articulation with 21 countries where we have the participation of more than 80 experts on inventory management. So for us, I think that this is a way to strengthen this learning process, specifically because Argentina shares these eco-regions with several countries that we border with. So being able to articulate and learn is for us really important, because these particularities, even though they are tended to, it's vital to have comparable information, as has been mentioned. And as for the quality of information and evolution, I think that this has been for us a learning process. So the different experiences of all the different countries, I think that will enrich the results. So it's so important for us to have the experiences of other countries and learn from all these processes of how we got to what we have now among the different countries, because it is also necessary, or at least for Argentina, it's necessary to have a consensus, because we're always going to have different opinions, but it's important to get to know their opinion and reach a consensus in order to synthesize all this information for decision-making purposes. And of course, thinking about Argentina's complexity internally, but as I mentioned, I think that all of this is really important so that we can articulate and work with our neighboring countries, because ecosystems are not aware of any type of border. So we have common topics and we might have had different histories, but I am sure that we all need to agree upon information that can be shared, and also processes and experiences in order to have better results. Thank you. Mr. Meneses, please go ahead. Thank you. So, to answer to your question, I think that this book will become without a doubt a reference and source of direct information about the design and implementation of national forest inventories, not only at regional level, but also worldwide. This book would have very important uses for all those people interested in getting to know the way in which we monitor and evaluate forests in the region. So for Mexico, participating in this book meant a great opportunity to strengthen the exchange of knowledge and regional experiences on the monitoring of forests. And from our point of view, this is going to help the processes for training on technical capacities for design and implementation of national forest inventories, supporting the efforts made by academic institutions in our countries like FAO through the initiative to strengthen the world capacities. So in the context of the Paris Agreement, the information on national inventories is going to be key in order to meet our commitments and comply with them, and to report according to the requirements within a framework of transparency. In Mexico, we will gather information as of next year from field data for our national forest inventories under a community forest inventory. Thank you. Thank you for your contributions and considering the joint efforts made by national forest inventories of the countries in the region. I wanted to ask Mrs. Schulde about her opinion of the importance to establish this network in the region.
Con respecto a su pregunta, puedo mencionar que la gestión adecuada de los bosques tiene el
I can
potencial.
imagine that has the potential of actually mitigating between 10 and 12% of the world emissions from the greenhouse gases during the voluntary actions of the countries in developing from the different sectors of uses of land, the reductions of emissions and the increase of absorptions within the mechanisms of payment based on results are actually assessed if a national system of monitoring of forests provides information which is transparent, coherent, and adequate for the process of measurement, report, and verification of estimates of emissions and absorptions of the greenhouse gas effects related to forests. The component of measurement within the monitoring systems is the most intensive in terms of information and work. It comprises the collection of national data on the change of the surface through a satellite monitoring system and the implementation of a national forest inventory. Within this context, the national forest inventories are the greatest sources of forest information at the country level due to the great number of sampling units and variables that are actually collected, which is a pillar to establish the forest policies. The National Forest Evaluation is a mechanism that is used by the Ministry of the Environment and Water and ecological transition to have updated information and robust information on the status, the use, and conservation of forest, which allows to ensure the adequate management and that implies to ensure the governance of the national forest patrimony. On the other side, the different current requirements of information to which the country must respond to in regards to the status of conditions of their other forests implies greater challenges, which is translated into more complex processes when they're actually addressed individually. A clear example of this is that currently there is no, at the world level, there's no adequate way of actually assessing a sustainable forest management, existing a huge criticism on the use of the criteria and indicators selected due to conceptual issues, due to the lack of availability of data, to the cost of methods of information capturing, either satellite or field, and its interrelation when you see link these in the development of a report, as well as the credibility of the forest national inventories or the data providing from mapping. The lack of a common agreement to assess the forest management at the regional level makes the regional forest information derived from the aggregation of data from the national forest inventories it is a little consistent. It's not that consistent, which is necessary to work in the processes of harmonization, such as the one that we're actually carried out in this Latin American network on forest inventories. As such, we will have not just better data, so for its use in the political decision making and contribute to the management is actually adequate, but these networks will allow us to actually have a backup and common objective when we actually seek financing for its maintenance, framed in the mechanisms of financing linked to the regional and global instruments, such as the Leticia Agreement, the Conference of the Stakeholders, the LEAF Coalition, the Green Fund for Climate, among others. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Judith. Finally, to actually conclude with this roundtable, personally, I actually want to recognize the huge efforts from the experts. And it's not just that they actually collected all the methodologies, but also that she started to actually carry out those first steps in harmonization with in goodwill. So this network region and North American or Europe, um, we need to establish numerous synergies and providing exchanges and improved methodology. And they actually serve as a platform to actually generate information for this harmonization that supports and facilitates the policies as well as other from other panelists. They've actually reflected today. Now, so truly, thank you so much to every single one of you, and of course, we want to express our appreciation to all participants for your professionalism, for the experiences contributed by you, and a true thanks by from all of your answers. Thank you so much, and I pass the floor once again to Dali. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ICR, and thank you all the panel members for your contributions. It's been an exchange and a contribution that's been very nice, and also to our audience who they've been asking in the chat. I remind you that many of your questions, these questions will be answered through they're actually being responded right now through the Q&A. It actually be compiled in a document, will be available with a video and with a book from this event, and it will be sent to all participants via email. So we'll continue with the program. Now we have to pass the floor to Ansi Picarinen, so she can actually provide the closing remarks. Ansi is the coordinator from the Forest Division from FAO, with a broad experience in forest monitoring, and also works strongly in Latin America. Ansi, you have the floor. Thank you so much, David. Esteemed colleagues, partners, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of actually closing today's event. And in my opinion, was incredibly rich and incredibly valuable. It's well known that the forests have a huge potential in mitigating climate change, stopping the deforestation and forest degradation are are climatic solutions based on nature that also improve food security, alleviate uh, alleviate poverty, improve biodiversity, improve the results in health, and much more. Um, it's been tremendously beautiful to hear about the advances, the efforts carried out by each of the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean in order to improve the credibility and the transparency of forest data. Furthermore, besides manifesting collaboration between countries, this book will serve as a path to actually put into place initiatives of harmonizations, and it also allows to actually understand the information that the countries actually use in the national processes, and that actually communicate the evaluation of the global forest resources known as FRA. Latin America and the Caribbean have actually given an important step with the joining of efforts and the creation of this network to share experiences on how to measure forests to produce robust forest statistics. Now, we hope that processes such as this can actually be promoted in other regions to achieve similar outcomes through the through the South-South cooperation. Esteemed colleagues, dear friends, we're here facing huge challenges. The loss of biodiversity and climate change are real threats, and we can only face them with updated and reliable information on forest resources and its dynamics. This information must be transparent and available to society. Now, during FRA 2020, the very last FRA, the FAO introduced a new digital tool for the national reports. That this tool is quite useful to disseminate data and metadata reported by the countries to the FRA. Now, we will continue making our greatest effort to facilitate the process of reporting from FRA and to make available the official data from the countries in a very simple and useful way for users. The work carried out by the Latin American countries and the Caribbean on harmonization will contribute to the same purpose, same objectives, and will contribute to actually improve the national reports and its consistency and the usefulness of global information on forest resources. Committed towards the development of capacities of the national forest inventories in Latin America and the Caribbean, the FAO established alliances with forest services from the Latin American countries, the Caribbean, the Federal University of the Amazons in Brazil, the Forest Institute of Chile, the National Research and Technology on Agriculture and Food Institute from Spain, and the European Network on National Forest Inventories. Together, and with the financial support of the project CBIT Forest, we actually managed to actually have this publication. Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone. Now, before we conclude, I want to thank the forest directors that participated in this event for their contributions and comments on this process. Also, I also want to thank the trust in the FAO to facilitate this initial process of this network. And I invite all the different partners to continue contributing in the consolidation and the next activities of collaboration. Thank you so much for your attention, and I wish you the greatest success to continue with this collaboration and any joint activities in the future. Thank you so much.
Bueno, solo para decir, igual, muchas gracias, Ansi,
Also, thank you so much for the beautiful words, and hopefully everyone had enjoyed this event such as I have, and our partners and the FAO. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you in the next events, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.